We're here because we want to include the unborn baby in the human family and under the protection of law. And Labor, the present Labor government wants to exclude the most defenceless member of the human family from the protection of law. You heard from Alexandra that little life is one of us, not at 40 weeks, not at 20 weeks, but from 1 hour, when by that most miraculous event in nature itself, a new name is spelled out in that first cell. A new genetic identity is literally spelled out. A name that will take a whole lifetime to be spoken. It's a character in our story that nobody has the right to erase from our story. And you heard from Senator Amanda that just law and just human rights thinking acknowledges that the baby has the right to life, inviolable, and that is the present law of Queensland. We have a just law. The ruling from Justice Maguire in 1986 closed with these magnificent words, "The law in this state has not abdicated its responsibility as guardian for the silent innocence of the unborn." That is our law, and it is a just law. It has always allowed for abortion in those terrible, rare, tragic circumstances where you have to save the mother's life. That is, of course, a necessary evil that the law permits. But it is a just law, and Labor wants to come in all its barbarism and tear up that law. Take this as an example. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is a Queensland state death certificate. This will apply to every one of us in due course. It also applies in this special section to a stillborn baby over 20 weeks. 20 weeks. After 20 weeks, a dead baby is a dead Australian. For the purposes of our population stats, for the purposes of all statistics. That is the present state across Queensland. And yet, Queensland Labor wants to tear that up and allow any baby to be put to death for any reason. No questions asked, no medical justification. Older than the little 20-weekers who need a birth certificate and who need a death certificate. But they will be open season under Labor's hideous law, and then beyond that, after 22 weeks right up to birth, on the colluding nod of 2 abortion clinic doctors on social grounds. Has there ever been a more barbarous and frankly evil proposition to enter this Parliament? And no matter how Jackie Trad and Yvette D'Arth and Premier Palaszczuk will squirm, that does, by definition, permit abortion on demand for sex selection. This already happens in states where laws like this prevail. In Victoria, a GP colleague of mine, Mark Hobart, was faced with this a few years ago when an Asian couple at 19 weeks pregnancy came to him and wanted an abortion because they were having a girl. And they only wanted a boy. 19 weeks. Under Queensland law, that will be entirely lawful. You don't even have to give the reason, you just get the abortion. Dr. Mark Hobart refused to collaborate in that proposition. He therefore broke the law in Victoria, whereby a doctor with a conscientious objection has to refer to another doctor who will do the deed. And that will be the law in Queensland. He broke the law in Victoria, Dr. Hobart, by refusing to refer this baby on, and the medical board dragged him through the disciplinary process. At least the AMA stood up for him in Victoria. The AMA in Queensland is negligent in defending babies and the doctor's conscientious right. Dr. Hobart was dragged through disciplinary measures. So will all of us in Queensland who refuse to refer a baby to another doctor who will do the abortion or arrange it. That is the attempt by Labor to coerce our conscience at the deepest level, and we can say to Jackie Trad and Palaszczuk and co, you can try to bring in your totalitarian coercive laws and compel our conscience to do something that we consider so terrible. You can try and force us, and we will treat your law with utter contempt. We will not obey your law. It was exactly 20 years ago that a Queensland doctor, David Grunman, the head of Planned Parenthood here in Brisbane, gave a lecture at Monash called Abortion After 20 Weeks. And after I'd taken his lecture notes to the media, the ABC interviewed him. And on that interview, Dr. Grunman explained that, yes, he would do abortion after 20 weeks for minor abnormalities or the woman not knowing she was pregnant and so on. And he gave a description of something that will be reality in Queensland again. He told the ABC that his method of choice for late-term abortions after 20 weeks was called cranial decompression, and it is on the record, on the ABC, that he said the following: it is essentially a breech delivery where the fetus is delivered feet first. And then once the head of the fetus is brought down into the cervical canal, it is then decompressed with a puncturing instrument, so that it then can fit through the cervical canal, end quote. In this Parliament in 1994, the opposition health spokesman, Mike Horan, a Nationals member, said the following: what will it mean, Mr. Speaker, for the conscience of society and its respect for law if they are vividly aware of such brutality and they see their leaders do nothing about it? More important, said Mike Horan, what will it mean for all those defenceless babies who, unlike their peers in the hospital nurseries, will never feel a human touch except that tight grip to their legs and that sharp instrument to the back of their heads? And he said, is that of no concern to the men and women in government, end quote. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a dark, dark time, because that is of no concern to the men and women in the Labor government. Oh yes, they're very concerned about many things. They're concerned about asylum seekers, but not these asylum seekers. Not these little refugees at the border of life. They will not be allowed entry under Labor. Oh, they're terribly worried about things like domestic violence, aren't they? But not this domestic violence. Not this ultimate domestic violence, where a mother and father will turn on their own flesh and blood and put it to death with Labor's blessing and funding. And the irony is they think they're striking a blow for feminism, for women everywhere. Do they not understand that this is playing into the hands of the darkest cultural forces that despise female babies? The 100 million missing girl babies in the world because of the cultural preference to kill off unwanted baby girls, like Dr. Mark Hobart met in Victoria and like we will meet in Queensland under this abominable law. Do they not understand that they are unleashing a yet greater epidemic of mental and emotional harm to women, as you heard from Emma and as I have seen in beautiful women for 25 years, who are panicked and coerced into a terrible action which creates a place of death in their bodies where there should be a place of life. And if that doesn't mess with their minds and hearts, what could? These are good people and they suffer forever, but Trad and Darth and the Premier don't seem to understand or care. So we're at a dark time. We are faced between that choice, between the life and love that is embodied in that human trinity of mother and father and baby, or the hatred and death that is embodied in this foul legislation from Labor. We salute the LNP for their stand last year when this sort of law was brought. Give them a cheer. And we salute those very few faithful Labor members last year who said they would not stand alongside Labor in the Pine Bill. And so, right now, we plead with the LNP to stand again on the side of life and love against Labor's hatred and death. And above all, we plead with those very few remaining faithful Labor parliamentarians, because on their shoulders hangs this entire outcome. And we say to them, we know the cost you will bear. We know what Jackie Trad will do to you if you vote against this. But maybe you were born for such an hour as this.